This is Mornings with Matt, the Deering Acting Studio podcast, where we discuss the connection between life and acting.
Alrighty, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Mornings with Matt, the Deering Acting Studio podcast. Today's topic: talk less. This is a really good topic. I like to first and foremost say that when it comes to acting, it can become really important to be careful with what you say. Same thing in life. The words that you choose and what comes out, then you become accountable for. So again, if we go back into improvisation, if I move from one idea to the next, to the next, to the next, and just keep rattling off ideas, I'm now held accountable for those ideas, and I have to track them down. And I'll either forgotten what I said and it doesn't get dealt with, or I now have got to remember everything, and really I should have just stayed on one thing. I'm gonna just say that obviously last night was election night, which a lot of craziness there, and so I think this topic actually is a really good one for today. The idea of talking less, because we're at a time right now where a lot of people are going to be doing a lot of talking, and it'd be nice if people started doing a little bit more listening and a little bit less talking. I wanted to refer to a quote here by Epictetus, the Greek philosopher. And he's the one that is coined with the quote, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." So if you know me, you know that I am completely obsessed with listening. I think that it's one of the highest skills. It's a superpower. And when you talk, especially when you talk about something that you don't know a whole lot about, then you can get yourself in trouble. And then especially if you talk and you're not willing to go back and apologize. And I think that's one of the biggest things that the world in general is missing right now, is the idea of not being willing to apologize when they were too quick to speak. So there's been plenty of times that I've said something, but this is one of those skills that I have actually worked on, is the skill of saying sorry right away. So if I jump passionately into some sort of a subject matter that I think I know a lot about, and I start running my mouth, and then I realize that I was wrong about that thing, because I can be a pretty firm debater, actually. I am quick to apologize. I'm quick to say, you know what, I didn't know this part of this argument, and therefore, turns out I was wrong. So the advice today, and this is something for us to grapple with, is to take the moment that you're living in, take the results that are coming at you, and learn to listen more and talk less. It's very powerful to listen, if you think about it. If everybody in the room, and let's say you're the leader, or you're somebody that people respect, and you're sitting in a room, and everybody respects you, but there's a lot of heated arguments going on, and you're actively listening. And I don't mean just like you're sitting in the room, but like you're actively listening. It's clear that you're invested in the conversation. You're listening intently, but you don't say a word. What happens eventually is that the room is going to become curious as to what that person has to say. I mean, it's just the way it works. Eventually, someone's going to go, you know what? I haven't heard from whoever it is yet. I really want to hear their opinion. I need to hear their opinion. And as the person who's been listening, if you're listening to the right things, you're listening for body language. You're listening for the words that are being used. You're listening to both arguments. You're listening to the argument that actually goes against your own argument. You are listening to all the most tiny details of a situation, and that empowers the person who is listening and who is quiet. The issue is when you're quiet but you're not connected or engaged. I think that's one of the things that people get, and again, I just keep going back to improv here because, life is improv, and right now is improv. Right now I'm improvising, coming up with what I will say next. So knowing that life is improv and whatnot, that it's a good place to continue to go back to. So in improvisation, we like to preach that actors should be patient when they hit the stage. They should, I always say they should enter to listen, not to speak. And so that's an interesting thing because there are some times when actors will be doing what they think is following the direction that I've given there, and they will be actively they won't be actively listening. They'll enter a scene with patience, but the patience is not grounded in listening. So all they do is just stand there and stare at each other. And that's when people are like, well, how far do we go before the scene's like, you don't want to just wait and it's super boring. I'm like, no, for real, you definitely don't want to. But if you're really listening, like if you're really tuned in, you'll figure out that you did have something to say. There is something to say. You do have a moment where you could interject. You're just not completely zoned in and you're not fully aware and prepared for that moment. But probably there was something small, some tiny little detail, either inside yourself or inside a scene partner that you weren't listening close enough to. And if you were, you would have known exactly what to say and you'd have had the answer and you wouldn't be silent anymore. Or if both parties are listening really, really deeply, you can get emotionally connected to that silence, and then that becomes very interesting. So we have this misnomer that a scene is going to be boring just because I'm not talking. That's not true. But the other misnomer is the idea that I think scenes should start off in silence. I don't necessarily think that, actually. I just think people need to be patient, but it's not about just patience. It's about entering to listen, entering a room with listening skills. And rather than overtly stating your opinion or pushing your idea or forcing something down somebody else's throat, instead, you want to listen to the full argument. Try to see both sides, try to understand the entire situation, and then respond with words. And hopefully, if you're listening to the spirit inside you, you're going to then respond with the right words too. I find that to be something that we run into quite a bit is us trying to apologize too often for the things that we accidentally said because we let ourselves speak too quickly, when truthfully the thing that we meant to say is not exactly what we said. I'm going to peek here a couple times at my notes because I've got I haven't gotten to the rewrite of this chapter in The Best Listener in the Room, but I did write a whole chapter on this because how could you write a book about listening without talking about being quiet? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's funny in Hamilton. There's that song. He says, "Talk less, smile more," that one. And it's funny, in that moment when he first says it, before I realized that, he's a derp and he's being totally politically, skeezy or whatever, I agreed with him in some ways. Because sometimes people just talk, but they got nothing to back it up. The difference was, I think Hamilton had something to back it up with, probably, which was hard work and dedication, and he was willing to, he was willing to do what he was talking about. Not everyone's willing to do that. So, so going down this path here, I think that one of the other reasons why we have a hard time with this concept of talking less is, I mean, and I'm afraid of it too. This is not just you guys, it's me too. Joey, you're here, so I'm gonna bounce it over to you for 1 second here, because and we're not gonna go there, but you and I, like, we didn't know how we were gonna start the show, you and me.
Yeah.
So we didn't even know you were gonna talk here, and then you laughed and and I listened to it and I said, okay, cool, we'll engage you in this for a second. What is the when I first started, and I said, the Welcome to the Mornings with Matt during Action Studio podcast, and then I just was quiet.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird. Like, it feels weird.
Yeah.
Like, for me, my heart is racing, and I'm going like I feel so nervous by that. Why? Well, the world is afraid of silence.
Yeah.
We're terrified of it, and so to think that we couldn't have 5 seconds of silence on air before everyone's going to just bail is wrong. I mean, I don't think people would, but there's got to be something going on. There's got to be something cooking here for me to be finding the right words to say. That's really interesting. And maybe they wouldn't want to have silence all the time. And of course, we should be entertaining. But why is that? Why is that we feel so nervous and we get so just bent out of shape when there is no noise to cover the silence? And I think it's because we don't spend enough time dealing with us. We don't spend enough time going internal.
Yeah,
and
probably
finding out what's inside here, and being willing to deal with that. So we feel like we always need something in our ears. We need to have the news, or we need to have a sports channel. We got to have some music, or we got to have like something to occupy us to fill that silence. Because otherwise, God forbid, I got to go in and talk to me. Mm-hmm. I got to hear what I got to say.
Yeah.
And that's a scary place.
Sure.
To look at yourself and listen to yourself and realize that there's some things in there that we got to deal with. And we don't want to deal with it usually. So we want to just turn on the noise and hear all the white noise all the time. That way I can block out what's true and what's really going on. But if we can learn to talk less, then we find the truth. And the truth is going to be what you want to say. It's always going to be the right answer. And truth, like, what is truth? Truth is something that we know. Like, it's a I hate to say absolute, but it's like this thing, right? Well, you might find your truth, and your truth is always the right answer too, because your truth might not be the truth. But if you're always looking for your truth, and I'm not talking about your opinion, there's two different things.
Yeah.
I'm talking about your truth. So let's say I find my truth and I deliver my truth and I'm passionate about my truth, but it's truth. I dug for it. I should be changeable because I'm always seeking the truth. And if anything, any tiny little crumb of something is then put in front of me that might alter my truth, I have to be willing to listen to it, take it in, and adjust my truth, or else it's no longer my truth.
Yeah.
And that's what happens, I think, is people find their truth, what they think is their truth, but it's really their opinion, and they state it, and they walk into it hardcore, and then something will come to them, some sort of evidence that's against their opinion, and rather than being like, oh, interesting, and being curious about it, listening to it, wanting to know more about why they're wrong, they dismiss it as if they haven't heard it before. And I think we better end here, pretty soon, because I wanted this to be a short episode anyway, the idea of talk less. funny, but even for today, it's just interesting that I feel like we need to be talking less, and we need to be seeking truth, and we need to be movable. We got to be bendable, and I want to say right now, be very, very critical of the people out there that are spewing the same information, disinformation, things that are scary lies, and they're repeating them over and over again because they don't want to face facts. They don't want to face the new information that has changed the truth, and now they have to deal with that thing. And if we can get over that as a society and start having real conversations, trying to get to a better truth on every side, we're going to be much happier as a human beings. Like, we're going to be in a much better place, because if I'm like, I don't ever want to go into a conversation with you ever. I don't ever want to go into an argument with you unless I walk into it with a known ahead of time, pre-sealed agreement that you're willing to be wrong. And we've had this conversation before, because there were times when you weren't, and I'm like, there's no point in me talking to you right now, because it doesn't matter what I say, you're not willing to be wrong. So who cares? Let's not have a conversation. And I would ask anybody else to say the same of me. But if someone asks, "Are you willing to be wrong?" I'll say yes. I mean, 100%. Willing to be wrong immediately. As a matter of fact, not only am I willing to be wrong, I enjoy being wrong. I'm weird like that. I don't mind being called out. I don't mind finding a new fact. It just happened this morning. I mean, literally just happened this morning. We were talking about one of the propositions that I think passed, and it was this increased tax. And he's like, "Did you vote for it?" I was like, "No." And I'm telling you guys my voting here, which I know I'm not supposed to do that thing. But he's like, "That goes after small business." I was like, "It does?" And I'm like, "I voted no anyway, but I didn't know that." And he's like, "Yeah." And I was like, "I'm pretty sure it's this other thing about income tax being a certain level." And he's like, "I'm pretty sure it's small business too, or it was on there." And I was like, "I didn't see it on there." And I look it up. You were right. It's going after small business. That makes me angry.
Yeah.
Well,
it's not where money's at.
And not just because I run a small business. Here's the thing. Like the what I read there is they're going to increase the taxes of small businesses by 78%. 78% increase in tax. Like that's crazy. And so you look at that and you're going, okay. And even though I did vote the way I would have voted anyway, it's the way that it was presented was very misleading on the thing. And so you go, okay. So that's one of those deals where, and this is where all these, I think, propositions and all these things get themselves in trouble, is they pack other things in there. So they present a truth that like everybody would agree with. Like, hey, we want to pay teachers more money. Agree. 100%. But they're not saying the whole truth. They're not delivering everything that's involved in it. And they're not saying, hey, we want to pay teachers more money, but we're only going to use a small percentage of the money that we steal from you to give the teachers, and then we're going to use the rest for whatever we want to use it for. And I'm not saying that any of this is true. I'm actually just using this as an example. So again, going back, like, this is my truth in a very quick moment of me hearing new information. And this is me saying out loud, I'm willing to be wrong because I know I don't know what I don't know. Mm-hmm. That's the only thing I know.
Yeah. The one thing that I found out was just that similar propositions have been passed in our state, specifically in previous elections. And one thing that happens is exactly what you said, which is where the money's not distributed exactly how you would have thought based on what you voted on. So, for instance, like, I believe the last time something like this was passed, admin got a lot of the money. And it's like, cool, but that's not what we vote. We vote for teachers.
Yeah.
And
and they'll bring in programs that you didn't even necessarily want to be into the public schools.
Yeah. So it's a mess, but it just goes back to, like, I think you have to understand to the best of your knowledge and try to look past what is right in front of you, because of what you said, like, misleading information is everywhere.
Well, and this is why in order to become informed, in order to become the philosopher that is actually thinking and is actually asking good questions and is actually entering a conversation with the intention of listening, you have to take any argument, I don't care what it is, and I don't care how high moral the value is that you're standing on, and you've got to go to the other side of the argument, all the way to the other side, and you have to learn their perspective. Because probably it's going to alter your truth. And it doesn't mean that your decision will be changed, but it will alter the way you look at it and the way you speak about it and the way you could be potentially respectful of the other party.
Yeah.
And so yeah, and this is it. I mean, let's take politics out of this, and you know, I think that came up because we were talking about it this morning, and so remove that out of the equation, any kind of politics whatsoever, and just think about this concept of talking less and listening more in all of life and in your acting. I guarantee you, it's going to change your life. It will change everything for you if you're willing to enter the room, enter the conversation, enter wherever you're coming into, even the enter your own opinion from the philosophy. I'm going to listen more. I'm going to listen twice as much as I'm going to speak. But you can't just be quiet. You got to listen. There's two different things, you know. Like if somebody was on the podcast with me, let's just say Brian, and I had been talking for a while. Now, a lot of times it's like these things that I say, like I'll go on these rants, that's what people want to say. There, he's not there. It's funny. If Brian were there, and all right, you can go away from that. It's funny though. If Brian were there and he was quiet, because he's thinking to himself, "Oh, I'll be respectful and I'll just let Matt speak. I don't want to interrupt." Okay, fine. But actually, you not interrupting but not listening actively, that's rude. That is rude. You need to be actively listening so that just in case you have something to add, something to say, you're there, you're ready, you're prepped. And if I wanted to kick it over to you, you're totally like there. You're all in on whatever's being said. So that's the idea, everybody. You want to be entering everything from this place of listening. You want to be quiet. You want to talk less. And I'm not going to say talk less, smile more. I'm going to say talk less, listen more. Epictetus.
Dang. Drop the mic.
Boom. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. This has been Mornings with Matt, the Deering Acting Studio podcast. This is a little quick injection for you, a little bloop. Hopefully you're feeling good, feeling psyched about the day. Listen more, talk less. Please do not forget to subscribe to this channel, like the video, and share with your family and friends, anybody that can help us spread this light-driven content to the planet.
To the planet.
Thank you, and God bless.
God bless. Thanks for listening to Mornings with Matt. Please like, subscribe, and follow us at Deering Acting Studio to keep up with the latest content. For more information on classes, private lessons, or professional development coaching, visit www.deeringstudio.com.